The water's homogeneous from there on down, and then I can compute the BRDF of this infinitely deep water. And it basically puts a mathematical layer here that says the reflectance of an infinitely deep layer of water with these IOPs is the following, and it's a non-Lambertian BRDF. And then it puts a bottom at 50 meters with that BRDF. So that's the way it works. In a sense, it's just like putting a seagrass bottom at 50 meters. It's just a different BRDF. And in general, it's a non-Lambertian one, whereas the seagrass is assumed to be Lambertian. But that's how hydrolite simulates an infinitely deep water body, is via this mathematically computed BRDF, and how that's computed is in chapter 9 of Light and Water. So it's, once again, a big nasty bunch of mathematics, but that's how it works. Okay, so that's, yeah. 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 You kind of get the strongest wave focusing like on the bottom if you're in a swimming pool. So you've got these waves that are like, this long, 6 inches, foot, whatever. And those are giving you that wave focusing down on the bottom of where, let's say, the water is 3 meters deep. That's kind of the strongest, most noticeable. And like Ken said, if you have a really confused sea with all these different scales of motion, it kind of blurs out. I mean, each scale, if you think of it this way, so the very biggest scales of motion would be giving you, wave focusing really deep, and the really, really, really smallest scales would be reflecting light and kind of giving you wave focusing 10 centimeters deep. And then it's this scale of like this big or so that gives you the wave focusing where everything comes together, 3, 4, 5 meters down, and it's kind of the most noticeable. And so, would you illuminate on that, Ken? And in the movies, when you see this submarine going under and you can see the wave focusing on the submarine, that was made in a swimming pool. Because the real submarine's down at like 50 meters and the wave focusing is all blurred out. But anyway, you can slip it past people who haven't had this course, but you guys will know what's going on. So anyway, you can play around with codes like this, kind of build up intuition about what sea surfaces are like. But I submit the best way to learn about sea surfaces is to cross the Drake Passage in a 20-meter sailboat. So you saw slides yesterday of kayaking along the Antarctic Peninsula here, and notice there's still more to do. I could have started up here and gone all the way down here, which if I had, say, 6 months, I might be able to do that. But I'll show you some videos in a second of crossing this. There's an old saying from the whaling days that south of 40 south there is no law, and south of 50 south there is no God. It turns out I was on watch when we crossed 60 south. So this is now by definition Antarctica's everything south of 60 south. So I had the great romantic pleasure of entering into the logbook that we've crossed 60 south. We're now officially in Antarctica. And the owner of the boat says, yeah, and we no longer have any insurance. So it turns out nobody will insure your sailboat if you're south of 60 south. So the old whalers thing now is, no God south of 50 south and no insurance south of 60 south. So I thought that was kind of funny. And here's when we were in Ushuaia, this monstrous thing here, the Emerald Princess docked, and I carefully photoshopped in my little sailboat here for comparison. It's the same size as the lifeboats on the big guy. Difference of, 113,000 tons versus 39, crew of 1,200 versus 2, but there are only 7 of us as opposed to 3,100. So I would much prefer to be on the small boat myself, but, that's personal choice. Okay, so I've got a couple of videos here to show you how things work down there. Okay. Keep in mind that these are the good weather photos because you couldn't do anything in bad weather. But here's note that he is clipped in. You can't go on deck without being clipped in and so on. 45 degrees over. We were often sticking the boom in the water. So that's one video's worth. And I've got another one here. We might as well look at that one too. This is from inside, just watching a couple of people adjusting the sail. And we get a little splash here in a minute. And I remember sitting in the pilot house here, which has a couple of porthole things at the top, glass things, and looking up, and it would just be green because the water was going completely over the sailboat, probably this thick. And so anyway, check it out. I spent a total of 14 days in the Drake and lost 18 pounds in the process because it was binge and purge without the binge part. Okay, so that's it for me. You guys now work on your projects till 5 o'clock and we'll see what happens.
When am I going to be here? And
Okay.
You'll be okay.